she asked me to tell her different stories, the stories I haven't shared. She had some questions, like, do you have stories about this? And because she couldn't really handle being blocked, she asked me if I have ever blocked someone. Yeah, I mean, I blocked many people, and there was always a reason for that. I blocked a self-growth guru or something like that, who was claiming to be top 3 in his country, and the truth is he wasn't even looking at his own traumas. And I found this little child begging me to take care of him, and we actually made a lot of progress. So I like that part. But in the end, I come to an era that, hey, do I really want a relationship like that? Do I really want to be part of this? I think I experienced that enough. And I share this with him. Look, you are choking me. I can't breathe. I need time, because I'm just keep on giving the energy. We have limited amount of resources, energy, and he was just sucking everything. I was even feeling tired all the time. He just couldn't handle it. He just asked for more. And I told him, look, if you keep on doing that, you're forcing me to block you. So I blocked him on the app we used to talk. Then he wrote from Facebook, so I blocked him there. So he wrote from Instagram, so I blocked him there. Then he found me on LinkedIn, and I blocked him there. Then he sent me like 20 emails in 5 minutes. And I don't regret that. And I told her another story. And it was about a girl, someone from a different continent. One day I woke up and there was this notification in a dating app. I also made a lot of joke about it. I keep it, I hardly use it, and I'm too lazy to like delete my account. And then I'm not lazy to delete the account, I'm lazy to redo it. And in my account, it's obvious my point of view, that I am investing in myself, that I'm doing my best to grow. So sometimes people want to talk about these things. So I accept it. And I made it obvious, look, you live 2 continents away. So we are just friends. If you have questions, I will answer that, but that's it. And then I heard this 2 new words that I have never heard before. Red flag. Catfishing. Catfishing? Does it even mean I'm fishing a cat? Does it mean like girls are cats? I don't know. And she was keep on telling me that. And the reason was because I had my own house with my family, and I was investing in myself, and I was like happy. I was a red flag because of all these things. It was crazy. And one day I didn't want to keep on doing that. So I told her, we can't keep doing this. And then, if you have questions about spirituality, self-growth, yes, I'm going to help you. And I did my best. I even shared contact of my friends because she said she's interested. And I said, okay, you can also have a second opinion on this matter from my friend. And my friend called me and said, she only talked about cats. Catfishing. And then I said, look, if you're gonna keep on blaming me for something, I don't really want to have this conversation. And she kept doing it, then I blocked her. And I think before like going into a relationship, she really needs to look at herself, understand what she's doing, and then like clean herself from these traumas. Because it's obvious she doesn't have trust to any man. I'm not saying she doesn't have excuses, though we can't hold into those excuses and like burst it out to everyone around us. I shared this with her, and they follow her, and she didn't like it. She was like, "Why didn't you fight for her?" Oh, yeah, because this is triggering her. Blocking, being a woman is getting blocked. And I told her not everything is worth fighting for. Okay, first of all, you can only help people that wants to be helped. Otherwise, you're gonna carry people, and then when you say, "Oh, just stay here for a second, I'm too tired," they're just gonna complain, and they will be in a loop. People need to put an effort to be able to get out. I mean, it's called a workshop. It's called doing the work. Also, I learned to choose my fights. I was at the 4th grade, and at that time, the principal would give stars to the classrooms. The most tidy one, the most hardworking, most well-behaving, and my class never had one of those. I was a pretty good student, and math was very easy for me. I just knew the answer. So I would just write. Actually, I don't even like to write. The teacher was forcing me. I mean, the answer is correct. Why are you forcing me to write? All of those things. Then I would read a book. Yeah, I was driving her crazy probably. I noticed somebody's walking in the hall and opening the doors, staying for some moment, going out, walking, getting inside the room, staying, going out. Then our classroom's door opened and the vice principal was there. And she said, "You're doing so well, keep going like that. This week you might get a star." Oh, yeah, what a lie. And I stood up because I'm protecting my classrooms, my classmates, my fellow classmates. And I said, "We were just in the hall, it was the other classrooms. And we are here saying this because you want us to behave." Of course she didn't like it. And I got grounded. I sent a psychiatrist, I sent to a shrink because I was a troublemaker. It's also a funny story because the children of the other parents of the other children, they were coming my parents and thanking because I was guiding them. Well, my classmates, they also didn't like it because they wanted to believe in this lie, and they always blame me for not getting the star. And I learned that if people doesn't want to open their minds, doesn't want to see, you can't force them to see. If they want to believe in a lie, they will believe in this lie. Or the person I told you about, this, the first person I blocked. I put a lot of effort, and I was putting the effort. He wasn't really working in himself. In Portugal, they had issues with drugs, and one day they understood they can't really fight with cartels or all the drug lords, and then they decided to do something different. And they said, okay, we are gonna produce our good, clean, best quality drug, and we're gonna deliver it to the people who needs it. Suddenly they were a monopoly, and they took the drug lords out of the business. So I also understood sometimes you need to go with a different approach. You can't fight. And I have a very good friend, and her husband is like a political activist, and just before the elections he's on the news everywhere. Nothing happens. They're even afraid that he will get assassinated or something bad will happen to him. And then one day I told her, look, it's so obvious. I mean, he's been doing this for like, what, 15 years? Nothing is working. So maybe you guys need to have a different approach. Instead of using news as a way to reach out to people, because who watch him are the people who think like him. And you want to change the mindset of other people. So why don't you take a different approach? Sort of fighting for people, really do something nice for people, like have an NGO. With all these resources, have an NGO. And then go to these poor people that you really want to reach out. Teach them, show them, make a difference in their life. They haven't done it yet. So for my idea, yes, everybody is worthy. Not everything is worth fighting for. We need to pick our fights. And it's better if we can find a way other than fighting. It's really more effective.